He saved 2 alien kids from a blizzard. Then elite forces surrounded him. The storm screamed across the frozen plains of Krylon 7, a world where winter never slept. The wind tore at the ground like claws, lifting sheets of ice into the air and turning the landscape into a blinding wall of white. Jonas Hale forced his hover bike forward, leaning low over the handlebars. The machine growled under him, fighting the storm with stubborn engines and old metal. Jonas squinted through the swirling snow, trying to see more than a few feet ahead. Should have stayed inside the dome, he muttered, breath fogging inside his helmet. But staying put had never been his style, not during his Earth Recon Corps days, and not now. Back then, danger had been a job. Now, danger was just part of living on a world that barely tolerated humans. The Serati, tall crystalline humanoids with glowing veins and cold eyes, made it clear that humans were lower-class settlers. Allowed to live here, but never truly welcome. Jonas didn't mind. He preferred the silence of the wilderness. Out here, at least the danger was honest. His bike beeped, warning of a sharp temperature drop. Even for Krylon 7, the storm was brutal. Jonas checked his map, searching for the fastest route back to his shelter. That's when he saw them. 2 figures. Small. Barely visible through the storm. He slowed immediately. His instincts kicked in long before his thoughts did. Jonas slid the bike sideways, stopping in a spray of powdery ice, and jumped off. At first he thought it was debris. Then he got closer. 2 Serati hatchlings lay half buried in the snow, curled against each other, trembling weakly. Their biosuits flickered in dim pulses, like dying stars. Thin ice crusted their skin and hair. Jonas froze. He recognized the markings on their suits. These weren't normal Serati children. They were royal-born, members of the ruling family, children of the High Conclave itself. What in the world, he whispered. They were fading fast. Their body heat was dropping. Their suits were failing. If he didn't act now, they would die within minutes. Jonas rushed back to his hover bike and pulled open a hidden compartment. Inside was a small metal case containing a military-grade thermal stabilizer, illegal for civilians, but Jonas had kept it from his service days. A quiet insurance policy for emergencies. He knelt beside the children and connected the device to the ports on their suits. It hummed to life, injecting warming serum through their systems. "Come on," Jonas muttered. "Stay with me." Their readings flickered on his wrist display, weak, but rising. A sudden vibration rolled through the air. Not thunder. Engines. Jonas looked up. 4 black skimmers burst through the storm, their light slicing the blizzard apart. They formed a perfect circle around him, silent and precise. Royal transports. Each one was worth more than Jonas would earn in a lifetime. The doors opened. 8 Serati stepped out, guards and dignitaries wrapped in glowing armor and elegant robes untouched by the storm. One stepped forward, his crystalline skin shimmering like frozen glass. His eyes widened at the sight of the children. "You saved them," he said, voice trembling. Jonas stood slowly, aware of how he must look, frozen, dirty, human. "I just did what anyone would do," he answered. "No," the Serati replied softly. "Not anyone. And not any human." More guards rushed to lift the hatchlings. The dignitaries watched Jonas with expressions he couldn't read, fear, relief, and something like confusion. Another Serati stepped forward, dressed in deep violet robes. "You have done what no Serati expected," he said. "You have protected the heirs of our conclave. Our debt to you is beyond measure." Jonas felt the weight of their words settle over him like a fresh snowfall. He hadn't asked for this. He hadn't wanted this. But the storm had brought him to these children. And now, the rulers of Krylon 7 owed him their most sacred promise. Nothing in his quiet life would ever be the same again. Jonas Hale had never imagined he would see the inside of a Cerati sky carriage, let alone ride in one. The sleek transport cut through the storm with ease, its energy barrier parting the snow like a knife through cloth. Inside, the air was warm, clean, and almost too bright. Two Cerati medics worked quietly over the rescued hatchlings. Their glowing hands moved in practiced motions, stabilizing the children with advanced tech Jonas had only glimpsed from a distance. The dignitary who had spoken earlier sat across from him, studying Jonas with unreadable eyes. His crystalline robe shimmered with shifting colors. "I am High Elder Sorrel," the Cerati said finally. "Those children you saved, they are my blood. My legacy." Jonas shifted awkwardly. "Anyone would have done it." "No," Sorrel replied. "Most would fear approaching royal hatchlings. Others would hesitate. You did not." Jonas didn't know what to say. He looked out the window instead. The storm looked different from up here, less like a monster, more like a distant threat beneath an invisible shield. Soon, the sky carriage pierced the barrier of the conclave dome, entering a world that felt impossibly warm and impossibly rich. The interior city glowed like a cluster of stars. Tall spires twisted toward the shielded sky, covered in thin rivers of shimmering light. Floating walkways connected the towers, and drifting orbs illuminated the streets below. It was beautiful. It was also a place Jonas never belonged. The moment the carriage landed, rows of armored guards formed a corridor for him. 100 eyes watched the lone human as he stepped out, some curious, others cold. A soft sound broke the tension. One of the hatchlings, now awake, reached toward him weakly as medics carried the twins away. "Warm one," the child whispered. Jonas froze. Even Sorrel looked startled. Cerati children rarely spoke to outsiders. Never to humans. Sorrel turned to Jonas with a new expression, one that looked almost like respect. "You will stay as our guest," Sorrel declared. "The conclave owes a life debt. And a life debt must be honored." Jonas opened his mouth to protest, but a new voice interrupted. "It is already arranged." He turned. A Cerati female approached with graceful, measured steps. Her crystalline skin caught the light like moonlit glass. Her silver hair was braided with flickering ribbons. Her eyes, deep teal, swirling with soft glow, studied him with open interest. "I am Ambassador Lyra Sereth," she said, bowing slightly. "I am assigned as your guide while you are honored within conclave walls." "Assigned?" Jonas repeated. Her lips curved in a subtle smile. "I also volunteered." Jonas wasn't sure what to make of that. She gestured for him to follow. "Your quarters are prepared. Anne. Elder Sorrel wishes to speak with you privately, once his children are stable." Jonas nodded and walked beside her through shimmering halls. The floors were smooth and cool, like walking on polished ice. Tall windows showed the entire dome city glowing under the artificial sky. Lyra glanced at him. "You do not look comfortable." "I'm not used to all this attention," Jonas admitted. "Cerati usually treat humans like background noise." "That is changing," she said. "Your actions today will echo across this world." Jonas shrugged. "I didn't do anything special. I just saw two kids who needed help." Lyra stopped walking. Her eyes softened. "That," she said, "is exactly what makes it special." Before Jonas could respond, a whisper echoed from nearby corridors. Guards murmured to one another. Court attendants leaned in with hushed voices. The human was now a symbol. A complication. A threat. A miracle. Jonas felt all those labels closing in around him. Lyra sensed it too. "Many will test you," she warned quietly. "Many will question why a human risked his life for Cerati royalty." Jonas frowned. "Is that really so strange?" "For some," she said, "it is terrifying. They reached a massive crystalline door that led to his temporary quarters. Lyra placed her hand on the panel, and the door opened with a soft melody. She looked at him one last time before leaving. "Rest well, Jonas Hale," she said. "Because what comes next will not be simple." Then she turned and walked away, her steps silent. Jonas watched the door close. He had a feeling she was right. And whatever "not simple" meant, it was already on its way. The next evening, the Hall of Light shimmered like a living crystal. Thousands of glowing shards hung from the ceiling, shifting color with every movement of the crowd. Serati nobility filled the room in elegant robes that looked carved from starlight. Jonas stood near the entrance, feeling more like a misplaced tool than an honored guest. His ceremonial outfit, dark fabric with thin glowing lines, felt too clean, too perfect. "2. Serati. You look ready to sprint back into the storm," came a familiar voice. Jonas turned. Ambassador Lyra stood beside him in a flowing silver gown that seemed to be made from liquid frost. Her crystal-like skin glowed faintly under the lights. "Storms are easier than parties," Jonas muttered. Lyra smiled. "That is because storms do not pretend to be friendly." Her words weren't a joke. "Not tonight." A chime echoed through the hall. The guests parted, forming a long path toward a raised platform where Elder Sorrel and his mate waited. On either side stood guards with glowing armor, formal and unmoving. Lyra touched Jonas' arm gently. "They are calling you." He stepped forward, feeling hundreds of glowing Serati eyes on him. Some watched with curiosity. Some with awe. And some, with clear anger. A tall Serati male with dark, gleaming skin watched him from across the hall. His stare was cold. Sharp. Like he was measuring Jonas' worth, and finding it lacking. Jonas remembered Lyra's warning. "Many will test you." The announcer's voice rang through the hall. "Jonas Hale of Earth. Rescuer of the royal hatchlings. Bearer of conclave gratitude." Jonas reached the platform. Elder Sorrel lifted a crystalline medallion etched with shifting patterns. As it touched Jonas' chest, it emitted a soft pulse of light. "With this mark," Sorrel said, "you are recognized as a friend of the conclave. Under our law, your safety, voice, and place among us are protected." A murmur spread through the hall, some respectful, some clearly displeased. Then something unexpected happened. Two small figures darted onto the platform. "Sorry. Loom," Sorrel said sharply, "this is not the time." But the twins ignored everyone. They raced straight to Jonas and grabbed his hands. "You're alive," Loom said, eyes bright. "You're warm again." Sorry added. The hall froze. Adults did not interrupt ceremonies. Royal hatchlings never touched outsiders. Yet here they stood, clinging to a human like he was their family. Jonas crouched to their level. "You two look better." Sorry nodded. "We want to show you something. A secret." Lyra appeared behind Jonas, her voice soft but urgent. "They should return to their parents." "No," Loom said, shaking her head. "Only he can hear it." A glance passed between the twins, fearful, guilty, determined. Jonas nodded slowly. "All right. Show me." They led him to a side chamber filled with floating learning crystals and soft holograms. The moment the door closed, their smiles faded. Sorry spoke first. "We didn't get lost." Loom added, "We were taken outside." Jonas' heartbeat quickened. "Taken? By who?" Their small voices dropped to whispers. "Kalair," Sorry said. "Our guardian. He said we had to hide," Loom whispered. "Then he left us. We waited, but he never came back." Jonas exchanged a tense look with Lyra. The official story had said otherwise. "He got a message," Sorry went on. "He looked scared." He told us not to tell anyone. Jonas knelt closer. Why didn't you tell your father? Loom bit her lip. He told us not to. Kalayer said father would be in danger. A quiet knock broke the moment. The door slid open. Elder Sorrel stood there, face calm but eyes tight. The children should return, he said. They become confused when frightened. Sari tugged Jonas' sleeve. We are not confused. But a royal command was a command. The twins left reluctantly with a waiting attendant. Once the door shut, Sorrel faced Jonas. I'm sure they shared their imagination, he said. Jonas met his gaze. Children don't invent details like that. Sorrel's voice lowered. Politics on Krylon 7 are delicate. Some truths must wait for the right time. He turned away and left without another word. Lyra stepped beside Jonas, her voice barely above a breath. He is frightened. And if the conclave is frightened? She looked toward the shimmering hull. Someone powerful wants this hidden. Jonas felt it, cold certainty settling deep inside him. He had stepped onto a battlefield far bigger than a frozen storm. And someone out there wanted the truth buried in snow. Morning light filtered through the crystalline walls of Jonas' guest quarters, turning the room into a soft glow of blues and silver. But Jonas barely noticed the beauty. His thoughts circled one thing. Kalayer didn't abandon the twins. Someone forced him to. A chime sounded. Jonas turned as the door opened and Ambassador Lyra stepped inside, her expression serious. Elder Sorrel requests your presence, she said. The matter is urgent. Jonas grabbed his boots and followed her through winding corridors. The conclave citadel felt different now, guards walking faster, attendants whispering, energy fields shifting along the walls like uneasy breath. Something was wrong. They entered Sorrel's private chamber. The elder stood with his hands behind his back, staring at a hovering screen that displayed distorted security footage. Jonas Hale, Sorrel said quietly, this storm you walked into has not ended. It has simply changed shape. Jonas stepped closer. You found something? Sorrel lowered his voice. Parts of the footage from the day my children vanished were altered. Entire minutes erased. Jonas felt a flare of anger. Who could do that? A Sarati with high authority, Sorrel replied. Someone above Kalayer. Someone who wanted the official report to hide the truth. Lyra stood rigid beside Jonas. Elder, if this is internal sabotage, you should alert the full conclave. I cannot, Sorrel said. Not yet. Half of them already doubt human integration. If they believe humans triggered this chaos, the treaty collapses. Jonas understood. If the Sarati government fractured, humans would become easy targets. Sorrel turned to him fully. This is why I summoned you. I need someone outside Sarati politics. Someone the twins trust. Someone not bound by our internal factions. Jonas raised an eyebrow. You're asking for help from a human nobody. Sorrel's voice softened. My children cling to you. They speak your name with safety. That is no small thing. I want you to find Kalayer. And uncover who ordered him to take the twins outside. Jonas didn't hesitate. Where do I start? Lyra stepped forward. We have a lead. A last known signal from Kalayer's personal transmitter, deep in the northern rifts, near an abandoned facility. Jonas frowned. Abandoned? Since when do your people abandon anything? They do not, Lyra said quietly. Which makes it suspicious. Sorrel touched a panel, revealing a holomap of icy ravines and broken ridges. You leave at dusk. A transport will be prepared. Lyra will accompany you. Jonas blinked. She will. Lyra shot him a sideways glance. Elder Sorrel believes I can guide you. I also may have requested the assignment. Her tone held something unspoken, something that made Jonas' chest tighten for a moment. Before he could respond, a soft knock echoed. The door slid open. Two small figures slipped inside, Sari and Loom. Their attendant tried to pull them back, but the hatchlings darted past him and ran straight to Jonas. "Are you leaving?" Sari asked, eyes wide. "Can we come?" Loom whispered hopefully. "No," Jonas said gently, kneeling down. "But I promise I'll find Kalair. And I'll make sure nothing like the blizzard happens again." Sari hesitated, then reached into her suit. "Then you need this." She placed a tiny data shard into Jonas' hand. "Kalair gave it to us," Loom explained. "He said if he didn't return, to give it to someone warm. Someone brave." Jonas stared at the shard. "Why didn't you tell your father?" "Kalair said not to," Sari whispered. "He said father would be in danger if he knew too soon." A heavy silence fell. Jonas rose and handed the shard to Lyra. "We need to decode this." "We will," Lyra said, her voice hardening. "This changes everything." Elder Sorrel stepped forward and placed a hand on the twins' shoulders. "Children, go with the attendant. Jonas must prepare." They obeyed reluctantly, casting worried glances back at him. When the door finally closed, Jonas tightened his grip on the shard. "I'm going to the northern rifts," he said. "But tell me clearly, what am I walking into?" Lyra's glowing eyes met his. "Not a storm," she whispered. "A conspiracy." And Jonas felt the truth settle inside him like cold iron. This wasn't about two lost children. This was about something much larger, something aimed at humans. Something that wouldn't stop until someone stopped it. The northern rifts were a world of broken ice and whispering winds. Sharp ridges cut through the landscape like the bones of a long-dead giant. Jonas had traveled dangerous terrain before, but Krylon 7's northern frontier felt alive, and watching. The transport sled hummed beneath him as it sped across the frozen ground. Beside him, Ambassador Lyra adjusted the controls with calm precision, her silver hair brushing against the cold glass window. "We are close," she said softly. Kalair's last signal came from beyond that ridge. Jonas studied the jagged horizon. "Feels like a place people disappear in." "That is why it was chosen," Lyra replied. Before Jonas could ask what she meant, the sled lurched violently. A shockwave tore through the ice. The transport buckled. The world tilted. "Hold on!" Lyra shouted. The sled flipped sideways, sliding across the frozen ground until it slammed into a snowbank. Wind howled through the cracked windshield. Jonas forced the door open and pulled Lyra out as smoke hissed from the engine. She looked shaken, but unhurt. "That wasn't weather," Jonas said. "That was." A blast of blue light shot past his head and melted a chunk of ice behind him. An ambush. Figures rose from behind the ridges, armored in dark crystalline plating. Their helmets bore the symbol of a jagged shard. The Shard Legion. The militant faction opposed to humans. They aimed their weapons directly at Jonas. "Human Jonas Hale," one called. "You will come with us immediately." Lyra stepped in front of him. "He is under conclave protection. Stand down." Another soldier responded coldly, "The conclave cannot protect what no longer exists." Jonas tensed. "What does that mean?" Before Lyra could answer, two soldiers rushed forward, grabbing Jonas by the arms. He fought back, but there were too many. A blunt strike hit the back of his neck, and the world flickered. He heard Lyra scream his name. Then darkness. Jonas woke to the sound of humming engines and rattling metal. His wrists were locked in glowing restraints. He sat on the floor of a transport cage, surrounded by Shard Legion troops. A familiar voice spoke from the front. "You should not have come to the rifts, human." Jonas lifted his head. Commander Vorik Roloth stood there, the same Sarati who had watched him with cold eyes during the ceremony. "So this is your little operation," Jonas said. "Kidnap a human and no one asks questions." Vorik's lips curved in a thin smile. "You misunderstand. We do not need to hide what we are doing. Soon, your kind will be gone from Krylon 7 entirely." Jonas laughed harshly. "You're not the first group to think humans are easy to erase." Vorik stepped closer, eyes glowing with anger. "The Conclave weakens us with their kindness. Your rescue of the hatchlings ruined years of planning. Kalair was supposed to disappear quietly. Instead, he ran. And you helped the children survive." Jonas narrowed his eyes. "So Kalair was your target." "Kalair learned too much," Vorik said. "He found the facility. He saw what we built. He was meant to die in the storm. Then why take the kids out there?" Vorik shrugged. "Collateral damage. A tragedy that would push the Conclave into isolation and end their attempts to uplift humans." Jonas felt a cold fury building. "But they survived." "Yes," Vorik said, voice sharpening, "because of you. A human." He spat that word like poison. Before Vorik could continue, the transport suddenly shuddered. A soldier shouted from the cockpit, "Commander. Something is following us." Jonas felt a spark of hope. Lyra. But the next sound wasn't a friendly engine. It was a heavy mechanical stomp. Then another. The roof buckled inward. "What?" Vorik snapped. A massive ice-covered mech landed on the transport, crushing its roof. Its claws tore through metal like paper. The Shard Legion soldiers scrambled in panic. Light flooded the cabin. The mech's cockpit opened. A voice rang out. "Jonas! Move!" It was Lyra. Jonas surged to his feet as the mech's claw sliced through his restraints. He dove out of the torn hull just as the transport tipped sideways, collapsing under the mech's weight. Lyra grabbed his arm, her face fierce and breathless. "I said I wouldn't let you walk into danger alone." Jonas managed a grin. "That mech is a bit much, don't you think?" Lyra smirked. "You humans like dramatic rescues. I am adapting." Behind them, Vorik shouted orders, but the mech's weapons lit up, forcing his troops to scatter. Jonas and Lyra sprinted across the icy ground. The Legion was regrouping. Vorik was furious. And the northern rifts were filling with enemies. Jonas glanced at Lyra. "This means Kalair's alive, doesn't it?" Lyra nodded once. "And whatever he found," she whispered, "is something the Legion will kill to protect." Jonas exhaled sharply. "Then we find him first." The storm quieted as Jonas and Lyra reached the edge of the northern rifts, but the silence felt wrong. No wind. No distant cracks of shifting ice. Just a heavy, frozen stillness that pressed on their ears. Lyra slowed the mech and peered ahead. "There," she whispered. Across a jagged field of broken ice stood a structure half buried under frost, an angular complex carved into the glacier, dim lights pulsing beneath layers of snow. "It's not abandoned," Jonas said. "Someone is keeping it alive." Lyra nodded. "This design, it is military. But classified. Even ambassadors do not see inside places like this." Jonas checked the weapon he'd taken from the fallen Shard soldier. "Then today's a good day for breaking rules." As they approached on foot, the ice beneath them vibrated. Jonas stopped. "Hear that?" Lyra listened. Machinery. Deep below. The entrance to the facility cracked open with a metallic hiss, as if the building had sensed their presence. Pale blue light spilled out, painting the ice like ghost fire. "Feels like a trap," Jonas murmured. "It is," Lyra replied. "But we go anyway." They stepped inside. The interior was colder than outside. Frost clung to the walls like veins. Holographic screens flickered with distorted code. Jonas felt the air prickle at the back of his neck. "Someone turned this place on in a hurry," he said. "Look, half the systems are unstable." Lyra touched a screen. It flashed red and displayed a warning in Sarati script. She translated softly. "Do not open lower levels, containment active." Jonas frowned. Containment of what? Before she could answer, footsteps echoed from a connecting hall, unsteady, dragging, but familiar. A figure emerged from the shadows. Tall. Sarati. Exhausted. His suit torn and flickering. "Kalair," Lyra breathed. The Guardian looked at them with weak relief. "You came," he said, voice cracked. "I tried to warn the Conclave. They silenced everything. Took my badge. Took my identity." Jonas stepped forward. "What were you trying to tell them?" Kalair staggered, gripping the wall. "They built something here. Something they should never have touched." Lyra moved to support him. "What kind of project?" Kalair's eyes glowed dimly with fear. "A biocode weapon. Engineered to erase human life while leaving Sarati untouched." Jonas felt his stomach tighten. "A plague." "Yes," Kalair whispered. "A perfect one. It adapts. Learns. It spreads through air and ice. They plan to test it soon. But I stole the key data shard." He touched his chest weakly. "They chased me. I hid in the storm. And the children. I never wanted to leave them. But I couldn't lead enemies back to them." Jonas nodded slowly. "You tried to protect them." Kalair looked at him with gratitude. "And you saved them." Before Jonas could respond, alarms blared through the facility. Red lights flashed along the ceiling. Lyra stiffened. "We triggered internal sensors." "No," Kalair whispered. "They were already coming." A booming voice echoed through the halls. It was Vorik Roloff. "Jonas Hale. Return what belongs to the Legion, and your death will be painless." Jonas clenched his fist. "Not happening." Kalair pointed down a lower corridor. "They are coming from the upper entrance. But there is another path. The weapon chamber is below. You must destroy it." Lyra pulled Jonas aside. "He can barely stand. We must get him out." Kalair shook his head violently. "No. If that chamber opens, thousands of humans on Krylon 7 will die within days." Jonas inhaled sharply. "Then we end it now." Behind them, Vorik's troops began forcing open the main hall door. Metal cracked. Boots pounded. "Kalair," Lyra said urgently, "can you guide us?" He pressed trembling fingers to a nearby panel. A hidden door slid open, revealing a narrow descending ramp filled with swirling frost. "That path leads to the core," Kalair said. "But be careful, the weapon is not stable." Vorik shouted from down the hall, "Cut them off. Seal the lower level." Jonas pulled Lyra into the hidden passage. Ice crunched under their boots as they moved quickly downward. Above them, Vorik's furious voice echoed closer. "You cannot hide forever, human." Jonas looked back one last time. Kalair stood in the open hall, weapon drawn, ready to delay the pursuing troops. "Kalair!" Jonas shouted. The Guardian smiled weakly. "Protect the twins, and the future they deserve." He slammed the hidden door shut. Lyra's breath caught. "He is sacrificing himself." Jonas clenched his jaw. "Then we don't waste it." They descended deeper into the frozen labyrinth as Vorik's forces closed in from above. The ice walls pulsed with eerie blue light. The temperature dropped sharply. And ahead, Jonas saw a glow so bright it seemed alive. The weapon core. Whatever was waiting in that chamber. It wasn't just dangerous. It was awake. The deeper Jonas and Lyra went into the frozen passage, the louder the humming became. The air vibrated with a strange rhythm, as if the ice itself were breathing. Frost formed tiny spirals on the walls, glowing softly. "This place feels alive," Jonas whispered. "It is," Lyra replied, her voice tight. "The core uses living crystal structures. They adapt, absorb energy, and multiply." Jonas raised an eyebrow. "Multiply? As in, grow?" Her silence was answer enough. The tunnel opened into a vast circular chamber lined with spiraling glass-like veins that pulsed with shifting colors. At its center hovered an orb of shimmering frost and swirling particles, cold, bright, and sinister. Jonas stared at it. "That's the weapon." Lyra nodded. "The Frost Genome Engine. It rewrites living cells. For humans, it would mean instant collapse." Jonas approached slowly. "How do we destroy it?" "The core is linked to the ice around it. If we overload it with the wrong pattern, it collapses on itself." Jonas smirked. "Wrong as in, human?" "Yes," Lyra whispered. "Human DNA confuses the core. It reacts violently, burning itself out." Jonas stepped closer. "Then that's what we'll use." But suddenly, boom! The chamber door exploded inward, spraying shards of ice across the floor. Jonas shielded Lyra as armored figures marched in through the smoke. Commander Vorik entered last, his armor glowing with cold fury. At last, he growled. "The traitor and the human insect." Lyra stepped between Jonas and Vorik. "This does not have to end with blood." Vorik sneered. "It already has. Kalair, and many more. All because the Conclave dared to lift humans above their station." Jonas tightened his grip on the damaged shard rifle. "Funny. I thought lifting people up made a society stronger." Vorik's eyes flashed. "Humans are parasites. But today, we cut you from our world." He raised his weapon. Jonas fired first. Vorik's troops scattered as the blast ricocheted, lighting the chamber with sharp blue flashes. Jonas grabbed Lyra's arm and ran behind a large frost pillar. "This is hopeless," Lyra whispered. "They have numbers and position." Jonas checked his pockets. "Numbers don't matter. I have something they don't." He pulled out a small vial, taken from a human emergency medical kit. A vial of dense human DNA markers. "The core needs this," he said. "If I get close enough, I can overload it." Lyra's eyes widened. "Jonas, the feedback could kill you." Jonas met her gaze. "I'm not planning to die. But if this thing activates, every human on Krylon 7 will." She gripped his arm, her cool touch shaking. "You cannot carry the weight of an entire species." He smiled softly. "Humans are stubborn. We try anyway." Vorik shouted from across the chamber, "Your resistance ends now." Jonas took a deep breath. "Cover me." Before Lyra could protest, he sprinted from behind the pillar. Blaster fire rained around him, melting ice and sending shards flying. Jonas zigzagged through the chaos, firing back just enough to make the soldiers hesitate. Lyra moved with impossible grace, her energy blade cutting through shots aimed at him, her body a glowing shield. He reached the core. Its swirling frostlight felt warm and cold at once. Jonas uncapped the vial. The particles inside shimmered like liquid silver. "Let's ruin your day," he muttered. He slammed the vial against the core's crystalline surface. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the orb screamed. A sound like shattering glass and rushing wind filled the chamber. Frost veins across the walls lit up violently. Lyra grabbed Jonas. "It's destabilizing. We must go." Vorik roared, "No." A shockwave threw everyone backward. The chamber flickered with blinding white light. Jonas hit the ground hard. Ice rained from the ceiling. The core cracked open, releasing a swirl of dying particles. It's working! Jonas shouted. The frost genome engine was collapsing, burning itself out with all the fury of a dying star. Vorik staggered to his feet, eyes wild. You humans ruin everything. Everything. He lunged toward Jonas. Lyra intercepted him, her blade humming. No more, she said. Their clash echoed across the chamber, ice striking crystal, blade against armor. In a final rush, Lyra drove Vorik backward. He slipped on the cracking floor. He fell into the smoking remains of the core. Light swallowed him whole. Then. Silence. The chamber dimmed. The walls stopped glowing. The ice grew still. Jonas sat up slowly, heart pounding. Is it over? Lyra collapsed beside him, breathing hard. Yes. You did it. He looked at her, exhausted but alive. We did it. Hours later. Elder Sorrel stood on a balcony of the citadel, listening as Jonas recounted everything. Lyra stood at his side, her hand never leaving his. Sorrel's expression was one of pride, and something deeper. Once again, Jonas Hale, you have saved not only my children but the fragile peace between our worlds. Jonas shifted awkwardly. Just did what needed doing. Lyra squeezed his hand gently. A very human thing. Sorrel nodded. Because of you both, the Conclave will move forward with the integration treaty. Humans will no longer stand in the shadows. Jonas exhaled. Relief washed over him. Lyra stepped closer. Your work here isn't finished. The future won't be easy, but we face it together. Jonas smiled. Together sounds good. Above them, the shielded sky shimmered with new light, dawn breaking over Krylon 7. A new beginning. Born in ice. Forged by human courage. And this time, Jonas didn't feel alone.